All right, we're about 2 minutes in, so we're going to go ahead and kick things off. I'm excited to present to you this webcast today. It's a collaborative effort from DocuSign, Salesforce, and Uptima. My name is Michael Jackson, affectionately known here at DocuSign as MJ, and I'll be moderating and hosting for today. The topic is accelerating revenue generation for MedTech. It's a topic that many of you are probably familiar with. Many of our customers and customers have reached out and really expressed interest, and we've seen a lot of traction in the space. And so we thought we'd bring everyone together and sort of cover the topics together all at once. This is being recorded, so for those of you who are not watching live, we appreciate you pulling it up after the fact. But like I said, we're going to get started and looking forward to a very impactful conversation. Like I mentioned, let's go to the next slide. My name is MJ, and I'm responsible for leading global industry strategy here at DocuSign, particularly among our strategic alliances. And I've been with the company for just over 2 years. I lead a very scrappy team who brings industry expertise as well as backgrounds in partnerships and strategic alliances. I've been in tech for almost 15 years. Most recently, before coming to DocuSign, I was with AWS. But just as importantly for topic today, for the decade prior to joining tech, I've spent quite a bit of time working for pharma, biotech, and medtech companies, including Stryker, Johnson & Johnson, MedImmune, which is now AstraZeneca, and others. So I'm looking forward to having my worlds collide and really digging into this topic. Joining me today are Derek Schultz, who's with Uptima, also Jeff Hunt, who is with Uptima, as well as Vaughn Schoten, who is with Salesforce. So I'm going to ask each of these guys to briefly introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their backgrounds. Let's start with you, Vaughn.
Great. Thanks, MJ. So my name is Vaughn Schouten. I am the global head of industry advisory and innovation for the MedTech space of Salesforce. I've been with the organization about a year and a half. Similar to MJ, my background is in industry on the commercial side of the house. I started my career in pharmaceuticals with Pfizer as a sales rep. Following that, I spent the better part of the next decade with Stryker as a sales rep and a sales leader in a few different divisions. And then I spent the last 7 years as a sales leader and executive at a biotech company. And kind of like MJ said, as my worlds collide, I now am working with all medtech companies, and with Salesforce, that includes laboratories, diagnostic, big medtech, on every single one of our silos when it comes to customers. So excited to be here today, excited for this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Vaughn. We're looking forward to digging in with you. Derek, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Derek Schultz. I'm the Vice President of Contract Solutions here at Uptima. So I oversee all of our contract implementations as it relates to how we solve for that problem. I've spent 20 plus years in software, either building it, selling it, buying it, or implementing it. And so my contribution today is really to bring more of the how we make the magic happen. I think Michael and Vaughn have got a lot of the what we're trying to do and how we want to make that work in industry. And what I'd like to share with you is how we see that playing out in the real world and what we're doing with our customers as we go to market and help implement these solutions. Been in the Salesforce / DocuSign ecosystem for about a decade now.
Great background. Thank you, Derek. And Jeff, how about you, sir?
Hi, everyone. Jeff Hunt. I'm a product owner here at Uptima. My background is that I was a software engineer for quite a few years. I worked in IT where I implemented ERP systems. I was a solution engineer for many, many years. The latest stint being I was at Salesforce for 10 years. And now at Uptima, I'm responsible for our product direction and also the creation of our products, everything from industry solutions, our AI solutions, platform development, and other areas. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate you bringing your strong technical expertise to this conversation. All right, so let's go ahead and kick off the presentation. So here at DocuSign and across our ecosystem, in many cases, we have a term, we call it TCO. Now, many of you may have heard the term, and you may think I'm referring to total cost of ownership. which is really important. But in this case, when we talk about industry strategy, I'm really talking about trends, challenges, and opportunities, right? The trends are what is happening in the market. What are our customers seeing that's impacting their business? Oftentimes, many of those trends translate into challenges. And those challenges present opportunities that we prioritize and ultimately pursue to help modernize business processes in the ways that our customers go to market. So, with that, we're going to kick it off by talking first about some of the trends that are happening across healthcare, life sciences, and specifically MedTech. So, Vaughn, I know you, when you introduced yourself, you talked a lot about your background, spending over a decade in Stryker, and I know that we were probably there for a brief window at the same time. But now, in your role at Salesforce, you are able to see directly how some of these trends are impacting MedTechs across the industry. The first one that really jumped out at me is the fact that 631 hospitals in the US are at immediate or high risk of closure in 2023. That's huge. Can you talk a little bit about that trend? What exactly does that mean? How is it realizing and how is it manifesting in your part of the world?
Absolutely. Thanks, MJ. So when you think about that, it's a staggering number. And personally, for me, as a patient and an end user in a lot of cases, it didn't make a lot of sense to put all the sick people in the same place. Um, then we had this little pandemic called COVID, and you saw what happened to access at these facilities. But then when you start thinking about the shift inside of care, so if I'm a patient and I need a shoulder scope or a total knee replacement, do I want to go to a hospital with the potential risk and all the other sick people and just kind of the hustle and bustle that occurs there? Or as a more healthy patient that just needs a surgical procedure, would I rather go to an ASC and be discharged that same day and recover where I'm comfortable at home? So there's so many different factors, MJ, that play into this trend. Those are just a few, but you see this massive shift inside of care. You see all these different preventative things that organizations are doing, wearables. Obviously, telemedicine is huge here, right? There's providers in this space that require, a virtual visit before they'll see you in person. So all of those things combined, and then especially with the financial model here in the US and how things are going, you're seeing these hospitals run into some financial trouble and having to shift the way they do things.
Yes, and we're definitely going to get into that when we talk about how that particular trend translates into some specific challenges. We have it noted, the enablement of remote care delivery and the influence of workforce transformation is probably contributing significantly to that number, but we're going to dig into that in a little bit. First, though, let's look at the second and third trends. Let's combine the two because I often think of an experience as two sides or the components of an experience, two sides of the same coin. Now, the second trend is that 40% of healthcare and life sciences leaders believe that increasing omni-channel technology is a key investment. So, from where I sit, that talks about engagement, right? Omni-channel meaning meeting the patient or the staff or the clinician where they are on their terms. So that's like the front-facing element of the experience or the interaction. And then on the back side of that same coin, there's efficiency, right? So this again blew me away. $25 billion estimated loss through revenue leakage this year in 2023. So that talks about, inefficiencies and the trends that are causing those. So let's talk about those one at a time. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing as it relates to the need for omni-channel experiences and sort of the current state of siloed, fragmented interactions.
Absolutely. So it's an interesting statistic. So from my seat, I have the privilege of seeing this from a global perspective. I just got home from Europe and interacted with several executives from large MedTech customers and new startup customers. Spent a week with them. This is an interesting, so in my mind, that number should be higher, especially as you're seeing the early adopters in the MedTech organizations that are putting time, energy, and resources into this. But at the end of the day, everyone wants this seamless experience, right? And when you start looking at patient populations and demographics, customers want the ability to have the right message in the right place at the right time at their fingertips through whatever medium that may be. And today, more and more, it's becoming the mobile device or the iPad. So this continues to be a massive trend in the medtech space. And there's another statistic that I'll share with you as far as trends go. So 40% believe that increasing omnichannel technology is a key investment, and they are investing that. But when you, from our seat, from our health and life sciences platform, 86% of the C-suite and the medtech executives that we meet with agree that targeting, so when you think medtech specifically, targeting the entire care pathway is kind of mission critical as we move forward. So that's that one. And then when you think about this revenue leakage, it's a staggering number. Last time I backed into the math in the medtech space, it was 4.2% of revenue. So when you think about commercial operations, I like to call it commercial excellence, as we talk to these medtech organizations across the globe, without even selling a new widget, without implementing a new service contract, without putting a new disposable on the shelf, if you just figure out a way to manage what you have in place and cut down on that revenue leakage, we've found millions, tens of millions of dollars for organizations just by simplifying the process and automating things. So this continues to be a trend. The customers that are diving into this are chipping away at this revenue leakage. And quite frankly, we're all trying to do more with less. And as we look at our own internal processes, which is what we're going to talk about today, we can chip away at that.
I wholeheartedly agree. And we're going to get into revenue leakage a little bit more later, but I will say this, to your point, I mean, 4 to 5%, it's huge when you could plug the holes of revenue leakage. And sometimes that includes more accurately measuring risk before you sign an agreement, or more effectively managing obligations on the back end. But again, we're going to dig into that in a little bit. Now let's talk about the challenges. So the way I mentioned earlier, you have your trends, and those often translate into challenges, which help us to identify the opportunities to pursue, not individual, sales opportunities, but opportunities to really disrupt how our customers go to market. One example I often give about how the TCO works in practice is, one trend is that as a population, we're all aging, right? As a society, we're living longer. Unfortunately, along with that, that longevity often comes, managing multiple comorbidities. And so not only is the pool of patients getting larger, it's also in many cases getting sicker. Now, on the flip side, the pool of providers, if anything, is contracting. And we're going to talk about why in a second. But that's the challenge, right? That is affecting the trend. So the opportunity is to address how you enable a shrinking pool of providers to effectively treat a growing, aging pool of sicker patients without sacrificing the quality of care. Now, as it relates to MedTech and these industry challenges, Vaughn, let's dig into this a little bit deeper. What are some of the influences that are causing the pool of providers to shrink? And what are you seeing as it relates to addressing that?
Absolutely. So when you think about this workforce management and enablement, I read an interesting article. I want to say it was in either Time or the Wall Street this morning. There's a staggering number when you think about customers of medtech organizations, and many of those for many organizations are surgeons, and the burnout that exists among that highly skilled niche group. So you not only think about the clinician burnout and the workload that's placed on them and the stress that exists in operating rooms across the world, you think about the staff, right? The auxiliary staff. You think about the nursing shortage and some of the things that have put into place. And it's getting tougher and tougher to attract new talent. And organizations, hospitals, surgery centers, even clinics, they're having to put additional kind of things in place to attract new talent and training and retention. it's been interesting to see, across the globe, this locums business and some of the pay that exists and incentives that exist to get this staff to stick around. So that's what we're seeing across the globe, and it's got to shift, right? There's this massive kind of trend towards taking care of yourself and mental health and all these patient portals, but we're seeing it, we're living it, and at the end of the day, it hurts because at the end of the day, us, our families, our friends, we're all patients, and it's affecting all of us.
I could not agree more. And that's why they took the triple aim to the quadruple aim. But we'll dig into that if there's time a little later. What I'd like to do now is talk about the next two. I want to combine and identify the differences, kind of distinguish between what we mean when we say slower time to revenue versus revenue leakage. So obviously, time to revenue is somewhat self-explanatory. How can we enable our enterprise customers to accelerate the pace at which they do business, automating workflows, streamlining processes, et cetera? We touched on it a little earlier, but revenue leakage is more about, managing obligations, measuring risk, and doing all the things that you can to realize the full potential of a contract or a customer relationship. So can you talk about those two, Vaughn, maybe comparing and contrasting along the way?
Absolutely. So I think you've seen, as we continue to kind of recover and accelerate out of COVID, even something as simple as reimbursement and time for organizations to be paid. But as far as the slow time to revenue, a lot of that burden and a lot of that, that's on the organization itself. And a lot of customers are still using just outdated technology. And I think it says it right there. And you hit the nail on the head, MJ. Archaic, manual, paper based processes, right? So if you think about the MedTech space, and just naturally because I come from the orthopedic world, there's organizations that use QR codes and in real time to real databases are able to scan and bill and create work orders and have POs come like literally in real time. And then there's still folks that are using Excel and paper to do this. And naturally, when you're not using real time digital platforms to bill and receive payment from your customers, you're going to have slower time to revenue. And in today's environment, we all heard this growing up, cash is king. So the organizations that have digitized this process and streamlined it are seeing, shorter time to capturing that payment and revenue, which is paying dividends for them. And then conversely, with the revenue leakage, similar type concept, but just the ability to cross sell and upsell and manage contracts that are in place, right? Like if your commercial sales organization doesn't have visibility to what is going on, or let's take an organization that has 18, 22 different business units. If they don't know the full story, you've got to be able to see a contract to understand where it sits today, how far ahead or how far behind a customer may be, and get ahead of it. Because from my seat, and as we work with these customers across the globe, gone are the days of us going to a customer and saying, hey, you're $500,000 behind on your contract. Here's an invoice, and they'll go across the street, right? There's loopholes and there's out clauses in every contract. So the key with the revenue leakage is cross sell and upsell and be able to stay ahead of that, right? It's a proactive versus a reactive approach. And there's a clear, easy pathway to kind of chip away and avoid some of this revenue leakage and stop missing opportunities.
I couldn't agree more. And in fact, I would even say sometimes it's about democratizing the expertise of the legal department, right? Sometimes a contract can seem so complex and so convoluted. So when there are solutions or ways to maybe leverage AI to make sense of it all, to pull insights out of a single contract or to identify trends across an aggregate of contracts so that you, again, can effectively measure risk and manage obligations, I think you hit it spot on. Vaughn. And so finally, let's close the loop on the challenges. Talk quickly about the impact of a disconnected experience, and then I'm going to turn to Derek to see what all of this looks like in aggregate in the current state.
everyone wants this, I'll use Amazon like experience, or I'll use my own personal experience, right? In today's environment, with the technology that exists, with the mobile devices that we carry around in our hands, there shouldn't be disconnected experiences. But when you look at the industry as a whole, because at the end of the day, a medtech organization is a very highly regulated manufacturer, there's some barriers and roadblocks that exist, and that kind of creates some of these disconnected experiences. But you can check into a hotel without ever having to stop by the front desk with a digital key. That's a seamless experience. Same thing with an airline, same thing with tracking a bag. um, that's where we're looking to move in the medtech space, and some organizations are there. The nice thing about it is all of the technology exists to get rid of these disconnected experiences, right? All of these legacy systems, all of these paper trails. You said the keyword, MJ, AI, and organizations are looking at this, digging into this, figuring out, yes, generative AI, but what's the next step, right? Like, okay, that's great. We can create an email, or we can give our customer, um, our commercial team a template, or we can, but then you start thinking about predictive. What's next? And when you use that along with, what we do at the human level, it can be very powerful when you have this at your fingertips. So getting rid of these disconnected experiences and legacy systems is paying dividends across the board for the medtech organizations that are putting time, energy, and resources into them. And quite frankly, everyone is in today's environment.
That's a perfect segue because you just mentioned in today's environment. So in many cases, there is a disconnect between where we are today, the reality for many of the organizations that we work with and those who are dialed in, compared to where they're aiming to go. So Derek, let's turn to you because you've been with Uptima for a while and you've been helping to implement solutions from both DocuSign and Salesforce. And what I'd like to do now is have you talk through what is the reality when you show up on the scene, right? What is the current state for many of these medtech customers who are looking to take incremental steps along their digital transformation journey?
Sure. Thanks, MJ. So I think the biggest thing, as we look at the trends and the opportunities here, looking at the the increasing pool of people that need services, the shrinking pool of people able to provide those services, and then also looking a little bit at the demographics of the people that are trying to provide those services. Today's environment is very much built around a paper-based process. This is the type of thing where we've gone into situations and, there's still a whiteboard up for dispatching and deciding where things go. There's a number of baskets that need to be placed in order to decide where contracts need to go, who's going to be working on which piece of paper, and making sure that you've got the right pieces of paper, the right contracts that you can fill out, the right paperwork to complete as part of the actual service delivery when you're on site, whether that's to install or service a piece of equipment that's out there in the field, or whether this is a kind of a new customer installation or new training opportunity for a new customer. So when we look at it today, it is full of manual processes. It is what you would expect with whiteboards and sticky notes. And I think the big thing there is that there's a lot of resistance to this type of movement. When we talk about trying to attract new talent into the industry, the next generation coming up to do this isn't going to accept that. That is just a non-starter for how they're willing to work in the world. I've got high school students, and it blows me away. Everything they do is on an iPad today, and I'm just absolutely like, everything from how they get their assignments to how they complete the assignments to when assignments are due and what needs to be done and how they collaborate with their classmates as it relates to those things. And I think that generation as it comes up is not going to be amenable to working in the current environment that a lot of companies are working in today, where I need to fill in the same form 9 times. I need to make sure I have a right paper copy of something to be able to clear out, where I'm filling in a carbon copied version of something in triplicate, or where I need to show up and do that, what I actually care about doing, and providing that service for people, and getting the benefit of going out and serving my customers, only to have to come back and then be saddled with a large amount of paperwork in order to be able to do that. And I think by having all of these disparate processes, by having all of these manual paper processes, we're putting additional workload that doesn't add value to the interaction on those people, which makes it less rewarding for them. And they don't get to the parts of the process that are value add upsell or up-service type engagements with those customers in order to deepen and enrich in that relationship with the customer to provide additional services and benefits to them, because they're so constrained with all the administrivia that goes along with this. So I think as we kind of look through this scene today, and you kind of look through what those processes are and think about your own businesses, where is that redundancy? Where is that non-value add? Where can we be more seamlessly integrating this data to do these sorts of things? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think that's the really big piece that is driving a lot of change today, and where the pain is felt inside the organization.
So that was great. So to that point, well, tell us a little bit about what we're looking at on the screen here, and where are some of the key opportunities to improve. So let's take it from the top and kind of drill down. What are we seeing here?
So I think as you go through the journey, what we're focused on with this discussion today, and what we're going to look at a little bit in the demo here in a bit, is how do we identify the opportunity to engage with that customer? How do we define the right resources to be able to do that? How do we schedule and route those resources to be able to provide those services? How do we provide a meaningful interaction with our customers to install, service, update, whatever it is that we're there to do with those devices in the field? And then how do we make them want to come back to us for more? How do we keep that engagement with them, right? And wanting to do more, or at least making them aware of all of the other services that might be available to them. How do we make sure that we're getting all of that information back? Things aren't getting dropped through the cracks, things aren't going missing, and that we're not creating unnecessary workload and unnecessary opportunities to diminish all of the work that's gone into creating that great customer experience by not following up, or by not getting that thing done that we said we were going to do. And I think that's the challenges today.
So it looks like there are opportunities along each step of the current state to improve the experience, to improve efficiencies and streamline workflows. Are there, I'm sorry, can we go back 1 second? Are there any that jump out at you? Is there, I don't want to walk through the entire process in the interest of time, but is there anything in particular that you'd like to call out that you find is most compelling as it relates to trends that you see as far as our customers, our joint customers, focusing on their prioritized pain point?
I think the big pain point is the administrivia, if you will, as we go through the process. And so the counter to that will be, how do we apply automation? How can we create a seamless integrated experience where we'll be able to surface the right information at the right time to the right people to be able to act on that inside of the field, or in the field, and then bring that feedback back in to the organization and appropriately action any follow-up items that need to be taken from there. And so being able to create that automation, tie these flows together, and build that experience, kind of to Vaughn's point, the Amazon experience, or my ability to walk into a hotel and go straight to my room without ever having to talk to anyone, is what the next generation is going to expect, not just from those that are providing the care, but also those that are receiving it.
Perfect. Again, perfect transition. Now let's go back to Vaughn. So Vaughn, let's talk about that experience that you've prioritized so much. On the next slide, we're going to see what a more streamlined version of this disconnected, fragmented workflow looks like. So let's go to the next slide and speak from a high level, Vaughn, of some of the experiences that you've helped to transform by addressing the challenges that have realized them or manifested from the trends. You want to walk us through what we see here from a high level?
Yeah, and I'm going to go a different direction than what we prepped for, because I experienced this, exactly what Derek just mentioned and walked us through as a challenge, this old archaic stack of papers. I walked into a standard routine checkup at the same physician's office that I've been going to for years, same address, same insurance, nothing has changed. Emergency contact. The poor receptionist handed me a clipboard with like 15 pieces of paper on it. And I literally said to her, the first thing that you did with me before I paid you the copay is verified all my information. And you told me every year we have to fill out this paperwork. Like, is there a digital way to do this, right? Like, they should have sent me a digital copy of this and say, are there any changes that need to be? Instead, I spent 22 minutes, I timed it, filling out all this paperwork, and not one single thing had changed. So that's an example of what good doesn't look like. What does good look like? Right? These patient portals where you're able to message a provider, or if you're a MedTech organization and you need service, right? The service team has complete visibility and transparency to contracts and different issues that have happened. If there's a document that needs to be signed, it can be done digitally, right? Like with a few taps on a mobile device. When you start looking at kind of in the middle of this, delivery and options to increase your sales, like how do we use this to cross sell and upsell? And if we have time, towards the end, there's a few use cases that I can share with the group. But when you think about customer experience, that's the one that I just hit on that was a head scratcher for me this morning. In today's environment, handing me 15 pieces of paper and wanting me to fill them out because someone in your office said this is what we need to do, they need to be filled out and updated every year. That's fine if you've moved or something's changed, but you can take the same thing organizationally. Like at the end of the day, the number one thing that our collective customers want across the globe is for us to be easier to do business with. So I think we have a clear picture of the challenges, and I think we have a few good examples of what good looks like. And as Derek's mentioned, the expectations moving forward. And that's kind of the key here, is what the consumer base expects moving forward, because they've experienced it with certain vendors, and that's becoming the new norm. And as MedTech organizations, we've got to get there sooner rather than later.
That's great. Derek, did you have anything to add to this desired state?
Yeah, I think the big thing to recognize here is that going from those paper processes, this is what was there. More people at the problem would have been the solution, a number of years ago, and that's how people got to where they are. I think as we look to the future here, our ability to integrate and seamlessly access data via mobile devices in the field is unprecedented at any other point leading up to today, right? And so I think really being able to understand the opportunity in front of us in terms of what a connected world looks like and how we can use that data, how we can pull that data to the forefront, how we can use things like electronic signature and dynamic contract generation in order to get the right paperwork to the right people to be completed at the right times as part of that experience. Is really kind of, I think, the next flip in this, as we kind of look at how processes are going to come together and what that's going to look like. So, as we go through this, I'd like to, kind of move us into the demo phase of things here, so we can kind of show you what we put together as an example of what is possible, where we can take off some of the administrative burden from those providers. We can take some of the administrative burden off from those people receiving services, like what Vaughn had addressed here. We can free up space and time and raise up more data to look for opportunities to sell additional services or upsell additional products as part of that experience, not just from a revenue perspective, but from an overall experience enhancement perspective for customers. If they don't know that there's a better option available to them, if we've never presented that with them, they've never given us the opportunity to buy it and then to say no. So we want to make sure that we're giving our providers the opportunity to do that by removing the things that don't add value to the chain, and then reducing the back end piece, so that follow-up is already done when the call closes, when you move on to the next visit, so that there isn't office work that needs to be done, so that paper isn't getting lost inside of the car on the way back to the office, or isn't getting misfiled, or something wasn't forgotten, or some data wasn't collected in the field that needed to be and requires a follow-up visit or a follow-up call. So with that, I think let's move down into the demo side of things. So Jeff, if you want to kind of take it from here and kind of walk us through what you prepared as far as a demonstration today. I think maybe just a quick preamble to this. What we've done is taken some of the thought leadership that you've heard here today. We've taken best in breed solutions across the Salesforce platform and the DocuSign platforms to look at how we can bring these technologies together in order to create that connected experience and to provide those opportunities while reducing or eliminating all of that administrative overhead. And so we'll demonstrate through that. But Jeff, if you want to tee up the scenario you presented for us today, and we'll get into that.
Absolutely. So the scenario is very simple. Uptima DME, a durable medical equipment supplier, just got a fax with a new prescription for a CPAP for Jeff Hunt, and Jeff has Blue Cross insurance. So we automatically create a case, the prescription's attached. We use GenAI to Gen AI to highlight the most relevant information on that case to help the caseworker. From there, we generate a work order and schedule it using the scheduling guidance. We also, from there, generate a work plan using Gen AI with steps tailored specifically to Jeff. And then once an Uptima DME rep is on site, they simply follow those work steps, and that walks them through checking insurance, providing options, cross-sell, upsell, and planning of documents, signature capture, and wrap up, including making a payment. And then, in essence, we're going to cover, the team mentioned those 4 industry challenges: the workforce management issues, slow time to revenue, revenue leakage, and those disconnected experiences. And the intention is to solve all of those challenges. Okay, so again, what we're showing here is that we have a new case that has come in. We have the prescription that's attached, still a paper form, and we are pulling all that information off of this prescription. And we're summarizing that and the case here with generative AI. So we can see the doctor, the insurance, a policy number, diagnosis, everything here in this case summary. Next step would be that the agent working this case would look at what needs to happen in terms of responding to this case. So we can see that they need to understand the details of the patient, reach out, schedule an appointment, make sure that the proper devices are selected that they're going to present, all the way through to the very end, which is a follow-up visit. Again, this is all generated by generative AI, and this is built by Uptima. So we're going to generate that work order. All the information from the case is carried over, and we'll drill into that work order. And from here, we're going to see that the same information and more has been summarized by generative AI. Not only do we have the insurance number, but we have the information about the coverages, the specific products that are covered. And again, all this is intended to make sure that no information is lost, and we've streamlined this experience. Once again, the guidance is provided. In this case, this is guidance for the scheduler. So making sure, once again, that none of these steps are missed. And now, rather than having a generic set of work steps or relying on the field technician's experience, we're going to generate a curated set of steps for that technician to follow once they're in the field. And these are specific to this work order, specific to Jeff Hunt, specific to this insurance, and also the specific products that are involved. So with that, we'll create that work plan. And then from here, we'll go ahead and schedule that appointment. So we're assuming that we have Mr. Hunt on the phone. We'll look at the available appointment slots. And we'll see that we have someone available. It looks like tomorrow, Thursday, the 28th at 9 a.m. So we'll go ahead and choose that time slot, confirm that with Mr. Hunt, and schedule that appointment. Now we're going to transition to the field technician the next day. The field technician is going to pull up their calendar on Thursday, see that they have a visit with Mr. Hunt. They are going to see the overview, directions, and all the information that's pertinent about this work order. And then they're going to see the steps that they need to follow, and not just the high level, but the detail. So for example, load all the equipment that's necessary, set out for the visit, making sure you follow the safety protocol. And then once on site, we're going to present the equipment options. I want to make sure that each customer, each patient has the ability to select from a mask choice, for example. So we present the CPAP machine, a choice of applicable mask. So in this case, the customer chooses the nasal pillow mask, and we'll include all the other recommended products, including the hose, filters, and the humidifier. Once this is done, we'll click OK and go back to our work plan and click the link to start the DocuSign generation of documents. And once these documents are generated, the customer will receive an email, and they can click into that email, and view the complete set of documentation that includes insurance information, if it's Medicare, Medicaid, the specific products that customer has chosen, and every place that they need to sign. So we're going to continue and look at that document. So here are all the products, again, all the purchase terms and agreements, and every place that we need to sign, including warranty and so on. And once we have made the appropriate signatures, we'll go ahead and capture some information about payment for the options that may have been chosen. And in the interest of time, I've compressed these to the payment capture, aside from the optionals for support, so we don't have to just hop back and forth. So still here, we're capturing payment for a service that we haven't selected yet, but again, that's just in the interest of time. So we complete the payment information for the optional services that we have selected, and we'll go ahead and process that payment, making sure that that revenue is collected immediately. And as I mentioned, the next step in the process would be, looking at those optional services. So, we have the ability to do that cross-sell, upsell, and ensuring that all the options are covered. So with that, again, we're making sure that the technology is such that really anybody can use this. We don't have to rely on specific experience, extensive training, and so on, that the revenue is captured right on site, that we're not missing the option for cross-sell and upsell. So we're gathering all of that revenue from all the potential products that we can sell. And this is a completely and fully connected experience using technology to enhance the user's experience. But just to recap, this is fully reduced and eliminated all the non-value added activities, really enhance the experience, as I mentioned, for the service tech and the customer. Definitely enhanced level of service, automated and systemized all the incremental revenue opportunities, full automation of all the post-call activities, securely and very seamlessly process the payment. And again, all this gets brought back into the system, ensuring that we've closed the loop. We would certainly follow up with a call to the customer and even a visit to make sure that things are working as expected. And we'll pass it back to the team.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Jeff. And I think things that I would call out here is, as you saw through that flow, the saying, the only constant is change is true. And I think through the application of AI and the way that it was demonstrated here, what we're doing is we're giving kind of a base guideline in terms of what that process needs to look like. And then through the application of AI and other inputs into the system, giving users the flexibility to then be able to modify to do what is necessary and needful as far as the customers are concerned, or as far as the work that's being completed is concerned. So you're not locked into you must follow everything, or you must detail out every step of every process all along the way, but creating enough intelligence and flexibility into the process to allow it to adapt and to evolve and grow over time as maybe the business transforms, business needs fluctuate, as customer needs change. And so as trends kind of work their way through industry, you're not kind of locked into the way that it worked at one point in time. There's flexibility to be able to do that. I think the other piece in here is, as you went through and you saw those different pieces of equipment that Jeff was selecting there, included in that could be, do you want to buy our gold, silver, bronze warranty program? Do you want to buy a regular service plan? Do you want to add on some sort of a subscription service that enhances that customer experience? Maybe we come back once a quarter and do some sort of service work for you. Or perhaps if you're, into heavier equipment, we're servicing one type of equipment and I see that you've got two more in this particular facility that aren't on maintenance plans. Would you like to add them? We can then quote that information up right there, give that information to you. You can sign off as an authorized person at the site, and that information can be routed back through to, the organization as it is. We can then take that information and put the appropriate language into the contract. So I think this is one of the big areas where there's a lot of manual processes today, where there's huge value add in this automation, is that it's not like, oh, I need that form, I need this form, and then you get back and you forgot something. We're going to build the contract with all of the forms that you need in order to complete that. And that includes either forms in-house. That could be Medicare, Medicaid forms that need to be completed and filled in. That could be other insurance forms that need to be submitted as part of this whole package that can be pre-populated, filled in with the information that you need for that, signed by the customer while we're there. And then once that signature hits, payments processed, we can then take that information and push it back. So all of your Medicare, Medicaid stuff can go to whoever's responsible for processing that. If I signed up for a new subscription service, that information can then flow back to that organization so that they can start onboarding you as a new customer for that service. Or, you know, in the case of, you know, a CPAP machine, maybe we're going to send out a new mask every 6 months. Well, let's start scheduling that, make sure that we've got those plans so that every 6 months this arrives, and that we're able to follow up on the commitments that we've made so that we can collect the revenue that is available as part of that service that's been delivered. And then all of this being delivered seamlessly through a mobile device in a way in which I think the next generation of workers is going to expect from us as providers of these types of systems. So I think what Jeff has done is a great job of giving you a little bit of an art of the possible here. And so when you think about this and how that can apply to your business, and there's some other elements you may want to keep in mind. MJ?
All right. Thank you. That was a great wrap up. Thank you, Jeff, for a very relevant real world example of how all of these technologies can come together and be implemented in a way to tangibly create value for our customers and ultimately their customers. Let's go to the next slide. So what I won't do is read this slide. There's a lot on the slide for you, but ultimately this slide summarizes the value that I just mentioned that is to be realized for all of our customers, not just the fictional one in the demo. But DocuSign actually works with 14 of the 15 top global life sciences companies around the world. We have over 1 million customers, 1 billion users, and we just celebrated our 20th anniversary last year. So, but my reason for saying this, though, is that as we hopefully have demonstrated in this webinar, we really are better together. And in this case, with Salesforce as well as Uptima, I'll start with Salesforce. So Salesforce was one of DocuSign's earliest investors and customers. And today we've got over 10,000 joint customers as a result of our direct collaboration between developers at the code level. And then Uptima is one of our platinum level services partners. Something very interesting that I learned recently about Uptima is that 40% of the employees there are either veterans or military spouses. And so we've got a growing list of collaborative outcomes that have been the result of our working together to enable our customers to better experiences that they deliver. So I like to refer to this slide as our opportunity to talk about how we really are better together. Vaughn, do you have anything to add?
I think you nailed it, MJ. It's about collaboration. It's about automation. And I think one of the questions in the Q&A is, what positive business outcomes do you see? I've always been a fan, and where I cut my teeth in the industry, let people do what they do best. And that's not necessarily pushing papers or doing T's and C's in contracts or taking a pen to paper for a bunch of signatures. If it's a commercial sales organization, let them be out in front of our customers, their customers, physicians, patients, whatever your business model is. But the technology exists. You know, a lot of what you saw today, it's all available. There's massive MedTech organizations that are doing this, and they're seeing, we all know that we need to drive greater efficiencies while lowering our costs. And statistically, in the MedTech space, as you implement some of these, what I refer to as kind of tip of the iceberg solutions with technology that exists, when we look at these customers, it shows 46% in potential savings. So when you think about that, and then you think about the challenges, that's what we're all trying to accomplish, right? We want to be easier to do business with. That demo was a perfect example of what does good look like. And at the end of the day, we are better together. You know, Salesforce, DocuSign, Uptima, there's so many solutions that exist that can do just that. Let your service team, let your commercial team, let your marketing team do what you hired them to do what they do best, and get rid of some of this mundane stuff that can be automated.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of questions, I also saw in the Q&A, Derek, maybe you can take this one. Someone asked, how do I get started? I think Vaughn summarized a lot of the benefits of working with this collaborative force, but how do they get started?
I think the best way to get started is to really kind of be honest with where you are as an organization and where you are in terms of maturity of your processes, and look for those activities that aren't really adding value to the execution, and then to engage with consultancies and providers that specialize in these areas to bring some of the art of the possible for how you can do better. What are the opportunities out there for you to streamline? What is that kind of crawl, walk, run approach that your organization can look at taking and investing in over the coming quarters to achieve a better outcome and to achieve better automation and a better experience for both your providers, your internal providers, subcontractors, as well as the customers that you serve. I think that those are kind of the biggest things, is just really deciding that we want to start making a change, and then being honest about where we think those opportunities are inside the organization.
All right, I think that's very well said. Well, in the interest of time, I think we're going to start to land this plane. So let's skip to the slide after this next one here, because we've already talked about next steps and how does this apply to you if you are a DocuSign customer, if you are already a Salesforce customer. What we like to say is if you've got a Salesforce practice, you've got a DocuSign practice. So like I said, our developers collaborate at the code level, and so it's a very seamless integration between the two, and Uptima is a platinum level expert in implementing. So let's go to the following slide, and I'm going to ask our esteemed panelists. We've covered a lot today over the past hour, but if there was one takeaway, if there was one thing that you'd like every member of our audience watching either live or in the recording to take away, what would it be? So I'll kick things off really quickly. I like to think of DocuSign as like a bow tie, or the processes that we impact as a bow tie, right? The signing, the signature is the knot in the middle, but the flank on the left is all the opportunities to improve processes, reduce manual data entry, streamline workflows. That's even before the signature. And then on the downstream, how can we automate workflows, manage risk, manage obligations on the downstream? So I would leave you with this. Start where you are. The first step is digitization, then create a singular source of truth against which AI can be applied so that you can pull out insights. Derek, do you have a parting word of wisdom?
Yeah, I think my parting word of wisdom, if we'll call it that, is you don't have to do this alone, right? So when you think about it and what you think might be possible or not possible, or what you think might be difficult or not, validate those assumptions. I think by attending this webinar today, or even tuning in after the fact to listen to what we've had to say here, there's a lot that's possible out there that a year ago wasn't possible. And there's a lot that we can do relatively simply that 5 years ago would have been unheard of. So don't limit your beliefs in terms of what type of optimization and what type of improvements you can make inside of those processes. Talk to people that are working in that area and see what kind of ideas they have, and see how that might apply and what the benefits to your business might look like if we put some of this automation and technology in place.
Perfect. And Jeff, I'll ask you for your parting words, but before I do, I'll remind everyone what you're seeing on the screen right now, the QR code that will take you to each of our LinkedIn profiles. We'd love to hear from you, connect with you, and continue the conversation. Jeff, do you have any parting words of wisdom as we wrap up?
Absolutely. I just wanted to point out that everything that we've shown in the demo today is real. You've seen a lot of slideware, a lot of talk about generative AI and other technologies. But again, this is all real and available today.
All right. Thank you. And Vaughn, you get to bring us home. Parting words, any pearls of wisdom that you'd like to leave with the audience today?
Absolutely. Well, you guys did a great job. I'll throw this out there. 30% of the data that exists is created by healthcare. So when you think about that, my parting words of wisdom was utilize automation, create, like MJ said, that single source of truth to where everything's connected through these different channels. But that being said, use the data, right? We can bury our internal organization and our customers with data. The key is using that data to make strategic business decisions. And all of these things that we talked about today are using the data that is created to our benefit. So, and just like Derek said, you don't have to do this. There's customers across the globe. We just had many of them at Dreamforce in San Francisco presenting. If you want to connect with a like organization, feel free to reach out to us. Like I said on the collaboration piece, we're better together. There are people that have done this. So let's learn from each other. Let's collaborate together and use this data to cross-sell, upsell, and make strategic business decisions as we continue to be easier to do business with.
All right. Well, with that, I'd like to thank each of my co-panelists. Most importantly, I'd like to thank those who took time out of your day to dial in. And I also want to thank the many people behind the scenes whose faces you haven't seen over the past hour, but we couldn't have done this without each of you. So thank you all. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to talk to you soon. Thank you.